Well, I'd like to welcome you to our series of practice tests that we'll be doing for Math 1108. 1108 differs from 1107 in the sequence of what is covered. So 1108 has their own testing. Now, I'm on a software page of Hawks, and one of the menu bars is Web Tests. So I'm going to click on that. And what it says here in this menu bar is a practice web test. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up a practice web test. Now in another video I go over detail of how you can actually make one like this. So briefly what I did is pick out the chapters we're working on, and that was over here is Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, and then went to the various topics and then added questions from that topic from the left side to the right side of the page, and then there they are. And I've given it a title. I'm going to work on 26 questions because this is meant to be a review. Your test will only have, I believe, 20 or so. And it's not timed, this one, so that we can take our time doing it. So I click on Start, and then the first question comes up. So in doing any of these practice tests, what you want to do is have your notes available. When you get to each question, pause the tape, read the question carefully, try your best to solve it, and then I'll jump in, review it with you, and then we'll go on to the next. So we'll give you some time here as we pause. Did you get something like this for your basic equation? Now we're going to subtract an x from both sides, or transpose that x. On this side it becomes a negative x, so this will become 2x. Transpose this, or add 39 to both sides. This becomes 120. We're now going to divide both sides by 2, and we get x is 60. So that's what I'll put there. Again, you want to pause, read the question over, and understand what they're asking. Well, this relates to Chapter 3. We have two equations, and they're both in the form of slope-intercept. Y equals mx plus b. And we're asked to determine if these lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So take a moment and see what you get. Well, in a situation like this, we want to really compare our slopes. So the slope of this equation is a negative 1/4, and the slope of this equation is a 4. And in background, we said if we multiply the slopes, and that would be a negative 1/4 times 4, and the product of that is a negative 1, that indicates the lines would be perpendicular. So let's put a click on that, perpendicular, and the explanation is the slopes are the negative reciprocal of one another. Now they are reciprocals, and notice that this second slope is the opposite sign, so that makes them the opposite sign reciprocal of what the other slope is. Again, pause, read it over. And here, background information is when the slope is 0, the equation of those lines are y equals b. And here we have an ordered pair in the form of a comma b, which remember is a form of x comma y. But if we just look at the b value here, which is a -8, the equation then would be y equals -8. Now this is a special form of slope-intercept because the slope is 0. And in review, if they said the slope was undefined, then that case, that formula is x equals a. And what would be in the a position here would be a -3. So that would have been x equals a -3. In this example, they're asking us to plot these two ordered pairs on the graph. So take a moment and you can just sketch this. So for A, it's -5, 3. So we go to -5, up 3, and put a dot there. And for B, it's -3, 0. So -3, 0. And that would be these. Okay, pause, see if you can identify these points. A is over 2, so that would be a -2, up 1. And B would be over 1, down 2, so -2. That's what you would put in the answer spots down below. In this example, we're looking at an equation that's plotted on the graph, and they want us to write it in slope-intercept form. So pause, take a look at the graph, and see what you can come up with. Well, we know it's going to be y equals, and there'll be an x in there. Now, where does it cross the y-axis? That'll be your b value. Well, it crosses it at 1, right there. And then what is my slope? Well, it goes through, we make a little triangle. We can go 3 this way and then up there. So our slope is, for the run, x units is 3. And for the y units, the rise, it's 2. So there is this equation illustrated by the graph, but in slope-intercept form. So putting it into the answer box using your keyboard. Now this is example 6 if you're keeping track. And the protocol, again, pause, copy it down. And this was a rather easy one. X is on this side. We're just going to add 12 to both sides and get 19. And just adding 12 or transpose it on this side, the -12 becomes a +12, and that's our answer. This one we had in our practice booklet, very similar. Pause, read it, see if you can come up with an equation. Well, the number of guitars sold in New York is 7 times what's sold in South Dakota. So 7 times X, which is the number in South Dakota, is this. So dividing both sides by 7, we're going to get X equals 12,634. 12,634 would be the answer to the question that they're asking here. For this next one, pause. Now the slope formula, as a review, is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And then we just substitute the values. This would be 3 minus 6 x or y sub 2 minus y sub 1. And then 7 minus 5 x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So here this gives us a negative 3 on top and a positive 2 on the bottom. So our slope is a negative 3/2 that we'll put here. And in review, if we wanted to look at what would be undefined, is if any real number other than 0 is divided by 0. This is an undefined situation and in a sense defines a vertical line in our graphing. All right, let's go on. Now in question 9, we're asked to first take a look at this formula. Do you recognize it? Well, it's in the point slope form where there's the one point. Notice the x is on the right, the y is on the left, so you have to be careful of that. And then there's the slope, m. So we're picking out the slope from this equation. It's rather easy. It's going to be what's ever in the m position, which is a negative 2/3. Now in picking out the ordered pair, here there are values for both the x and the y, but we need to be careful because in the original formula there were negatives. So to keep this correct, we have to reverse these signs. So our x value here would be a negative 4, and our y value is going to be a positive 3. So we're going to put that point there and that slope there. Then they will ask us to graph it. Now we are asked to graph it as part 2 of this. So my point is negative 4, 3. So I go over here, negative 4, and then up 3, 1, 2, 3. And I will say next here. And then from negative 4, 3, negative 4, 3, which was right there, I need to have a slope of a negative 2/3. So I'm going to go over 3, 1, 2, 3, and then go up 2 to get my other point. So again, my original point, negative 4, 3, negative 4, 3 was right there. And then to plot my negative slope, I went over 3, up 2. Okay, that looks good. Let's go on. Now, for this one, you want to plot this equation in slope-intercept form. When we have the y-intercept, which is a positive 1, we just put a dot there at positive 1, and then plot our slope. Now, this one's positive, so we're going to go to the right 3 and then up 2 for our second point. And there is our graph. Now, notice positive slope starts low, and as you move to the right, goes up. Negative slope starts high, and as you go to the right, goes down. So a little check on your work. Now, for this one, I'm going to use the whiteboard, but be sure you've copied it correctly and give it a shot. Okay, a couple of ways to do this. We can try the old-fashioned way. We can add 3x here, add 3x here. This gives us a negative 2x minus 3 is less than or equal to a negative 5, because these just cancel out. Now to get rid of the 3's here, the negative 3, I'm going to add 3, and I now get a negative 2x is less than or equal to a negative 2. But now to get a positive x on the left, I have to divide this by a -2. And the rule is, if you have to divide or multiply to get your variable positive, you have to reverse the direction of your inequality sign. So this will then become an x, and this becomes a +1. Now, one of the things they're going to ask us is to put this in interval notation and also to graph it. So here's my line. I'm interested in a 1 here, and I'll show you how to do that here shortly. But what do I do? Well, I have to use a bracket or parenthesis here. Since 1 is included, I have to use a bracket at 1. It goes to +infinity. And when we use the math software, we get 3 little dots here, the ellipses. Now, putting this graph into interval notation, we're going to need a bracket. I almost did a parenthesis here. We need a bracket at 1, comma, +infinity. Remember, this is a bracket. Infinity always has a parenthesis there. So let's go back to our regular board, and we'll put that into the solution interval notation. Now, for this, I'm going to use the keypad here. I'll clear this up, though. So the keypad, and I needed to pick out a bracket. It's kind of off a little bit, so you can't see it. And I clicked it on the side. There's a bracket, and I'm going to put there a 1, comma, and pick up the infinity sign here. That's this one. And now to graph it, I'm going to pick up the bracket, move the bracket to a +1, and be sure it's on the 1 here. It shows you there where there's the 1. And then move this to +infinity. And it's not letting me because I didn't get the right signs. Let me try that one again here. So I didn't see that very well. I needed a bracket and a parenthesis. And if you clicked on this one, apparently it was 2 brackets. Didn't see that very well. And it wouldn't let me go to infinity. I needed to have a parenthesis here. So in a sense, that was good to show I had to clear it, reselect the bracket and parenthesis, and then drag it to the proper position. Note the distinction between interval notation and then graphing. Take a moment to write the equation. Again, you want to solve it on your own. But for something like this, you can easily transpose this -1/2 to this side, where it becomes a +1/2. This disappears on that side. And then we have t equals, adding these together, we get 6/2, which is 3. There's another way, but we'll illustrate that with perhaps another example. Question 13. And here I would get my variable positive by putting it to the other side. And that would be a positive 5x on this side. Transpose that 8 to the other side, where it becomes a -8 and a -2 is -10. Divide both sides by 5. I get x equals a -2. In this example, they're asking us to solve for an ordered pair. This equation is in standard form, and we're asked to, in a sense, make a little t-chart. Where our x value is 0. So 3 times 0 is 0. What would your y value be? Well, you're just going to divide both sides by 3 here. and this will give you 13 thirds, which is what I'm going to put there. The second part of this, they're asking us now to find if y is a 0, what would the x value be? Well, again, 3 times 0 is 0. We're going to divide both sides by 3, and we get 13 thirds for that. Now notice there are different positions, even though the values seem similar. So again, I'm going to put a fraction in there as 13 thirds. All right, let's go on. Now here, determine the slope in the y-intercept. Well, we want to reflect what is the slope-intercept formula. Y equals mx plus b. Here they've reversed it a little bit, but let's put it in this form. So once it's in slope-intercept form, and this is like a modified form, they switch these two values around, our slope is going to be 3, and our y-intercept, remember, you must put it in as an ordered pair, 0, 6. And let's do that. Now they're going to ask us to graph this too, so I'll leave this data here, and we'll go on to the next slide. Raise it up a little bit. We can see our y-intercept is 0, 6, which is right there. And our slope is 3 over 1. We don't write the 1, so we're going to go over 1 and up 3, which is right there. So over 1, up 3. All right, let's clear this up. We had one like this already, and another way to solve it, where you don't have to reverse the signs, is take your x term that's negative and bring that over. And on this side, it's going to become a positive 3x. Take your 15 that's on this side, bring it over, it becomes a negative 15. That then will become a negative 18. Now we're dividing by a positive 3. And we're going to get x is greater than or equal to a negative 6. But be careful about writing this. Most folks like to see the x on the left, and then that is greater than or equal to negative 6. Now notice when the negative was on the left side of the inequality, it was less than. Going to the other side, making it positive, it became x is greater than. So in interval notation, again, let's put that properly here. We need a bracket. A negative 6, comma, positive infinity. And we'll show you the graph here shortly. So let's put this data in. So I selected a bracket and a parenthesis, put that in. Let's go to the number line now. And again, I'll pick the correct one this time, first up. Drag it over to a negative 6. Be sure it's on that negative 6 there. There we go. And then drag this to positive infinity. If you don't select the proper set here, you won't be able to get to that. All right, let's go on. Again, our variable is positive, so we're going to move that negative 15 to the other side, where it becomes a positive 15. So then we get a 1 left here is equal to 9z. Divide both sides by 9. I get our z is 1/9. Now here we're looking for a linear function. Volume is equal to 9h, where these are the values for our h. We're just going to go, I could put these right in here, as you can. 3 times 9 is 27. 4 times 9 is 36. 9 times 9 is 81. And 9 times 10 is 90. And then they're asking us to put this on a graph here. So 3 times 9 is 27 right there. 4 times 9 is 36. 9 times 9 is 81. And 10 times 9 is 90. And if we were to draw a line, you'd see all of these are in a straight line, therefore linear. All right, let's go on. Now we're asked to solve this one, and we could write it out. 3v equals 27. Divide both sides by 3. So v is going to be what? Put that in our answer slot here as 9. And then continue, clear that up. We're getting toward the end here. All right, this one's a little more complicated. We're going to have to write it out and solve it. Now I distributed. A negative times a negative gave me a positive 6c. Negative times a negative gave me a positive 10 is greater than this. I want to keep my variables positive, so I'm going to transpose the 2 to this side where it becomes a negative 2. So this is 4z is greater or equal to, I'm going to transpose this 10. On this side it becomes a negative 10. So this would be 8. Divide both sides by 4, so I get z is greater than or equal to 2. Now in interval notation, I'm going to use a bracket, put in the 2, comma, positive infinity parenthesis. So I will use my keypad here to pick out the proper items. I need a bracket and a parenthesis. So 2, comma, and then positive infinity. And then graphing that, I need to choose a bracket and a parenthesis. So there's my 2 here. And there's my positive infinity. So we're getting extra examples because I made this a little longer. Let's go on. We're almost finished. Some of these are easy. This one you might be able to do in your head. You're going to subtract 15 from both sides. So you get v is what? How about a negative 9? So negative 9 and 15 is 6. So this was sort of an easy one. And here she owes this much for text messaging and this much. We'll have to read this carefully and work it out. Now I changed the example on this one, but they work the same way. Here a person's going to get 600 messages for $6. And then 15 cents for each additional text message. And she owes $30.75. So how would you go about figuring this out? Well, for $6, she's going to get 600 messages. So when I subtract that from what she pays that month, I get $24.75. Now, when I divide this by 15 cents, what each additional message would cost, I get 165. Now, the key here is, what are they asking? And it's how many text messages did she send that month? It's not the 165, it's the 165 and the 600, which would give you 765. Now, if I check this out by putting the answer in here, I'm going to put it right in that little spot there, 765, and I click submit, I see I have that one correct. Okay, on to the next. Okay, this one's sort of easy. I'm going to transpose the -2 to this side. That's an equal sign there. That becomes 2v, keeping my variable positive. This is transposing this to this side gives me 14, dividing both sides by 2. So v is going to be 7. And we just, I think, have 2 more to do. All right, the cost of the shirt and a jacket, if the price of the shirt is this much less than the jacket. So take a moment to work on that equation. So let's say X is the shirt, and the price of the jacket is this much less than that, or the shirt. So that would be plus X minus 776, and that equals all of this here, 99.34. Okay, work that out, see what you get. Now, this could be tricky. Remember, this was the price of the jacket. The shirt was this much less than the jacket. So we added this to both sides, got 2x, but x is the price of the jacket. They're asking what was the price of the shirt. So we had to subtract that from the jacket and got this. All right, let's go on. I think we're almost finished here. Okay. Solve this. So we're just going to subtract this from both sides and see what you, and a negative 3.3. So one more, I guess. Here we'll use our other technique for getting rid of fractions by multiplying each term by the lowest common denominator. Here the 3's cancel out and we get a negative 2z. Here no 3's cancel out, so this is going to be a 21 is less than or equal to, the 3's cancel out, 2z, a negative 3. So if we want to keep our z's positive, we're going to move it to this side where it'll become 4z. Negative 3 here becomes a positive 3 on this side, 24, divided by 4. And we get z then, I'm going to put it in this form, is greater than, notice the opening is towards the z, 6. So interval notation will be bracket 6, comma, positive infinity, and then let's see how we do. This is running a little longer than I wanted it to do, but let's see how we do it. We want to get our bracket, and there we go. So 6, comma, positive infinity, and then graph it. Bracket 6. Now, keeping your variables positive, you don't have to reverse the sign here. Okay, I think this is the end. Yeah. I did spot one error, but I fixed it up on this one. And again, check your work. I was working a little bit too quickly there toward the end, but hopefully helpful as you prepare for your first unit test.